order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Great Barrington Select Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so following the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Pursuant to Mass General Law 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body who may transmit the meeting through any medium. Beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the town, by CTSB, by Berkshire Edge, and may be recorded by members of the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. Listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meetings. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. We will start with the approval of minutes. We can do those separately if we have changes, or together if we do not.
Let me make the motion to approve
Yes.
all three. December 7th, 2020, December 21st, 2020, and January 11th, 2021. I have one very minor change
Yes.
on the December 7th meeting, number 5, convene as sewer commissioners. It says a motion was made to convene as sewage commissioners. Just change the one word to sewer.
Okay.
Again, under number 5, but otherwise, I have no comments on any of them.
Me neither. I second.
So I have a motion by Ed, a second by Bill. Any discussion? And right now I see, I just want to make sure Kate's not here yet. And I don't see her, so it's a roll call vote if there's no discussion. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Next are select board's announcements or statements. Lee?
Nothing.
Bill?
No, nothing here.
Ed?
Nothing.
And I have nothing. Town managers report. Mark?
Hey, Steve, I have a number of updates to provide the board and the public tonight, starting with the Housatonic Waterworks. I have 2 updates on this particular topic. On March 26th, the Housatonic Waterworks Company submitted a water treatment feasibility study for manganese removal to both DEP and DPU. The cover letter and the study are both posted on our website on the Housatonic Waterworks tab, which is located in the select board page, or on the select board page. And I also just wanted to mention publicly, for those of you who may have missed it, that the next informational meeting of the Housatonic Waterworks Company is scheduled to be held virtually on Thursday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. We'll go ahead and share that link on our website and also on our social media accounts, and it can also be found on the Housatonic Waterworks website. Next up, cultural competency training. I just wanted to let the board know that on Thursday, April 1st, all department heads attended a 2-hour cultural competency, climate change, and climate justice training. And I just wanted to thank our Strategic Sustainability and Livability Committee and Bridge for hosting, and our staff for carving out the time to attend. The next item is something that Lee had mentioned at the last meeting, and I just wanted to provide an update to her question from that evening, and that's St. James Place and the request to consider placing a new bus shelter at that location. And I just wanted to mention that I reached out to Chris Rembold, our assistant town manager and planner, and also Tate Coleman, who's from the Regional Transportation Advisory Board. And at this time, they have plans to install one out in front of Town Hall here, just south of Town Hall, right around the corner from St. James Place, and one across the street at the former Hong Kong buffet near BCC. So while we don't have plans to place one directly in front of St. James Place, it's just around the corner, and we do have plans to install more as we go. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if that's a potential location.
Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, Mark, I was just wondering if we could get a bench there, not a shelter. So the question was a bench, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. So it wasn't a full-on shelter. It was just a bench, if possible, and so that was the question, not the full
Okay.
shelter.
Let me look into that.
I guess the other. Yeah, and we have benches around. I mean, not that we're going to be moving benches around, and because I had spoken with Laura Brennan in the last meeting about the long-term moving benches. But if there is a bench and it seems that it could be useful and not too much trouble, that was the question. So
Sure. My apologies. Next on my list is the new principal assessor. And for anyone who may have missed our recent press release, I'm happy to report that we hired a new principal assessor, Ross Fivori, who started working with us last Monday and comes to us with a decade of experience working for the city of North Adams and the towns of Lanesboro and Clarksburg. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to welcome him. He has a busy year ahead as we convert to a new software system in that office and also to quarterly billing. So welcome, Ross. Our transportation program, which is next on my list, I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a shout out to our elderly and disabled transportation team down at the senior center. We've transitioned now from providing service locally to Houstonic and Great Barrington residents, which we've been doing for several months, to providing service regionally. And I'm excited to announce that we've now taken on the towns of Alford, Monterey, New Marlboro, and Stockbridge through an intermunicipal agreement that we have signed with each of those communities. So we'll be providing services to those towns. Some of them we've been providing services to already. So that's kind of exciting. And moving on to the fairgrounds on my list. I just wanted to mention to the board and to everyone that's participating tonight that I'm continuing my efforts to meet with the Fairgrounds Board as requested by this board. But the real reason for my update tonight is to mention publicly that the town received an offer from Chauval Enterprises. I know the board is aware of the Chauval family and their offer, but I wanted to mention this publicly tonight to purchase and donate the property, the fairgrounds property, and donate 15 to 20 acres in the rear portion of that parcel to the town for use as a trail connector, for use as a dog park, for a picnic space, ice skating, what have you, whatever we would like to use that space for. They're also offering to clean up the property and develop the frontage into some form of mixed use property, meaning small retail, housing, something along those lines. And of course, all of that would have to be approved by the special or through the special permit process. But I just wanted to announce that offer is on the table, and my hope is that we can work something out with the Fairgrounds Board so that that property benefits everyone in town. And my last update is an easy one. I just wanted to mention to the residents living in the downtown area and anyone who has street parking elsewhere that the winter parking ban was lifted on March 30th. So parking on our streets overnight is no longer an issue. And that's all I have.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I guess, Mark, I just wanted to thank you for continuing your efforts into talking to the Board of the Fairgrounds. And I hope that, with this information that they were willing to at least speak with us. So Thank you for keeping track.
Sure. I have been in touch with the Ellsbach since our last meeting, and I hope that we'll continue to communicate and move this forward.
If there's no questions, we'll move this along for licenses and permits. Mark Amstead for a driveway permit at 131 Lake Buell Road. Do I have a motion? You're muted, Ed.
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second? Bill, you're muted.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ed, a second by Bill. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Next one is Thomas Flynn for a driveway permit at 7 Forest Street.
Motion to approve?
And second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Motion by Ed, second by Bill. Roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Next is public hearings. Big Y, change of beneficial interest in the all alcoholic liquor license at 700 Main Street. Motion to open the public hearing.
So moved?
And second.
That's a roll call vote, as all are. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. And I see Mike Gold has been promoted. Go right ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm Vice President of Legal Affairs for Big Y and Table and Vine. As you know, Table and Vine operates the Big Y inside the Big Y location at 700 Main Street. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Big Y. It's effectively our liquor division, and we're seeking approval for an application change in stock ownership in Big Y, resulting from the owner's gifting of a small amount of their non-voting shares to trust for the benefit of their adult children. And I note on the agenda that you've received the application and attachments and the summary sheet. I just want to note that the transaction was complicated and I guess very complicated given the minor changes in ownership. But because Table and Vine has multiple retail licenses in Massachusetts, we worked with the ABCC to do what they call a reverse transaction approval. So the ABCC has already approved this, subject, of course, to your local approval.
Do I have
Available for any questions.
Yeah, do I have any questions from the board or from the public? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
And second.
So I have a motion by Ed to approve, a second by Bill. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Gold.
Thank you very much.
The next two public hearings are going to be postponed and moved to April 24th. So I'm going to need a motion on each one separately.
To open the public hearing, you mean? And then to postpone it?
Yeah. I don't think we need to do that. I think we can just go right ahead and just, Mark, we don't need to open the public hearing, do we?
If you open the public hearing, we will not need to re-advertise.
Okay, so we'll open and then do it.
Motion to open the public hearing?
And second.
Roll call. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye. Now a motion to
Continue to April 24th at 6 p.m.?
That's correct. So this is the Depart Wine Mass Retail LLC for a new wine and malt package store license at 28 Railroad Street. Do I have a second?
No second.
Okay, and this would become a roll call vote. Is there any discussion? Hearing, Lee, go ahead.
Ed, did you say April 24th? Because that's a Saturday.
Did I miss? The 26th?
Is it the
26th?
26th?
I must have said 26th then.
Okay. You can't see me laughing, but yeah.
I better make the motion correct. So yeah, the motion is April 26th, Monday.
Okay.
I'll second the correct motion then.
Okay, roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I. Now it's a Coffee Bar LLC for a new all alcoholic restaurant license at 34 Railroad. Motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
And second.
Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I. And now motion to table.
Motion to continue to
Next.
April 26th at 6 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I. It's unanimous. So both of those have
Do
now.
you want to quickly explain why, just so people know?
Yeah, Mark, do you want to just go quickly?
Sure. There was an error that we recognized earlier today, that today is actually only day 9 and we're required to have 10 days notice to the public. So if we hold off until the 26th, we'll be covered. And my apologies to the applicants.
Okay, moving ahead. We will convene as sewer commissioners. So motion to convene as sewer commissioners.
So moved.
And second.
The roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I. It's unanimous. Sean, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so I'll just introduce the consultant, DPC Engineering, and Dave Prickett, who's going to be presenting tonight the current sewer rate analysis along with the long-term projected capital plans for the town.
Thanks, Sean. Feel like we're going to be the ones to slow this meeting down a little bit tonight. You're doing so good. If James, I don't know if you have access to the screen share, he's going to pull up a PowerPoint presentation. James will take a lead on the overview, and we'll both be available for Q&A.
Yeah, I'll just need access to share PowerPoint if that's okay with the board. I don't have permission at the moment on Zoom.
It's fine.
You're promoted as a panelist, so you should have access, but let's see if we can. Maybe we need to make you co-host. Bear with me here.
Yep.
Do you want any chance you can send me the presentation? Seem to be unable to promote you.
Okay, that's fine. I can send it to you. There's a PowerPoint and a PDF, so whatever's easiest for you.
While we're doing this, there are 9 panelists right now and 22 attendees, just so anyone wants to keep track.
All right, there we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So tonight we're here to give you an update on our fiscal year 2021 sewer rate study. This is something we've been doing annually for the town, looking at projected capital, the existing sewer rates, and making sure that we're adequately funding the budget. Or if you want to go to the next one, thanks. So here's a quick overview of the topics we're going to cover tonight. We'll start with some terminology specific to our sewer rates and the project goals. We'll look at our current sewer rate system and how it's structured. We'll look at our planned capital improvement projects over the next 5 or 6 years. We're going to look at 2 rate alternatives that were considered as part of this study. We will look at a senior discount concept that we put together for sewer users. We'll look at a sewer rate abatement concept that we put together for all sewer users. And then we'll look at our recommendations and have some time for questions at the end. So a quick background and some terminology. I'm sure all of the board members were familiar, but just for the public. You'll hear the term EDU thrown around tonight. That stands for equivalent dwelling unit. So one EDU is typically one residential sewer customer. Fixed fee refers to a set cost independent of water consumption. Great Barrington currently has a fixed fee system based on EDUs. So each sewer user is assigned a value of EDUs, and they are charged that number of EDUs for sewer usage, regardless of how much water that they use. There's also a fixed rate for sewer consumption, and that's a set unit cost based on water consumption. And that's not something that Great Barrington uses, but it does tie into what we look at for the sewer rate abatements. So that's why this is on here. And then just a few administrative terminology you'll see on the slides is CIP is for capital improvement plan, CY calendar year, and FY fiscal year. So our project goals, when we decide to look at this project, these are what we kept in mind as we evaluated our alternatives. The first was the impact of the proposed wastewater capital projects on the sewer rates. We wanted to evaluate the impacts of potential senior abatements and sewer discounts, evaluate the potential for USDA funding for wastewater capital project as a potential partner for future projects, and develop recommendations to fund these proposed capital projects while also stabilizing retained earnings. You can see at the bottom, the certified retained earnings balance for fiscal year 2020 was almost 5.1 million. So it's a healthy balance the town is carrying right now. So our current sewer rate system, I touched on this briefly, but it's based on the number of EDUs per customer. So typically a single family home is issued an assignment of 1 EDU, and they're charged that. Currently there's 2 billing periods. So they're charged half of the EDU rate in each billing period. There's 2,053 customers and approximately 3,775.6 EDUs. There are a few fractional EDUs currently assigned in the system. So the fixed fee is $253 per billing period, which comes out to $506 per year. And our last rate increase on the EDUs was in fiscal year 2018, when the town raised the sewer rate from $460 to $506 per EDU. And the prior rate increase to the one in fiscal year 2018 was in fiscal year 2013, when the town underwent the wastewater treatment plant upgrades and increased the sewer rate from $370 to $460 per EDU. Currently, there are no discounts for sewer users, so that can be a seasonal discount based on water consumption, low usage users, or seniors. Currently, there are no discounts. This graphic just shows the trend of the sewer rates in Great Barrington over the past 10 years as opposed to the statewide annual average. So you can see our 2-step increases, one from 2012 into 2013, and then the other from 2017 into 2018, where the sewer rate has remained. Across the state, we've seen averages ranging from an increase of 4 to 5% per year for sewer rates. Our proposed capital improvement plan, this includes key wastewater projects that the town and the sewer department would like to undertake over the next 5 years. The first of which is a pump station upgrades project. Now, this project has been designed. It's ready to go to bid. We're looking at a few alternatives for funding and financing. We were recently presented a potential funding opportunity with USDA that we're exploring, and that includes upgrades to Cone Avenue, Risingdale, Fairgrounds, and South Main Pump Station. There's also an annual CMOM program. This is a permit requirement. It's in the NIPD's permit for the wastewater treatment plant and its collection system that serves the community. The CMOM program includes annual evaluation of the sewer system. This includes CCTV, manhole inspections. You might have seen some of the guys out there in the summer opening the manhole along with DPW and the wastewater treatment plant staff evaluating the collection system. So this is an ongoing program. We're currently developing recommendations for replacement and rehabilitation where necessary in the system, and this is something that will continue every year as regulated by EPA and Mass DEP.
James, if you could just pause there for a second, I just wanted to jump in and add that of the three major projects which the town is planning over the next several years, the first one with the pump stations is driven by the excessive ragging problem and the town's constant need to have wastewater staff cleaning pumps out. That's long since been publicized within the community. So that'll be a real significant improvement. The second and third projects are regulatory mandates. They aren't optional projects that the town's choosing to do. They're required by EPA and Mass DEP. So they're part of the same upgrades that your neighboring communities are going through right now, and Great Barrington's planning to do the same.
Thanks, Dave. And then the last project is Phase 3 wastewater treatment plant upgrades project. As Dave mentioned, this is a regulatory requirement. I know it feels like we just finished the upgrades at the plant a few months ago, but it's constantly evolving, and there's new permit requirements that are driving the need for additional upgrades at the plant. So the sewer rate alternatives, we looked at a 6-year rate projection, which fell in line with a 5-year capital improvement plan that we looked at. We wanted to make sure we had one more year after implementation to make sure the rates were stabilized. It includes the capital projects that were discussed on the previous slide. It includes a goal of maintaining a minimum retained earning balance of at least $2 million per year. As you saw before, the current balance is about $5 million. So we are relying on using some of the healthy retained earnings that the town has built up over the past few years to help fund some of these capital projects. That way we're not putting the entire burden on the ratepayers. And the two alternatives that were evaluated, alternative 1, we looked at an even rate increase in years 1 through 6. So we put together a capital plan based on a 5-year schedule, and we broke up the sewer rate increases into 6 equal buckets. And that ended up being about a 16% increase per year to fund these projects. And that includes drawing down retained earnings to $2 million. That would result in a proposed rate increase of $580 to $587 in fiscal year 2022. Alternative 2, we looked at a large increase in year 1, followed by smaller increases in years 2 through 6. We've found in our experience, sometimes communities like to take this approach. It's almost like ripping the Band-Aid off, and you have smaller increases moving forward. Although it would result in a 53% increase in year 1 with 5% increases in years 2 through 6. So you'd have one big increase of 53%, and then you'd be looking at 5% increases over the next 5 years. This would result in a proposed rate of $774 for fiscal year 2022.
James, as you're presenting these options and for the public to understand, both alternatives represent the same budgets, expense budgets for every fiscal year. The goal is to figure out different revenue collection methods. So it's the same retained earnings balance at the end of the program, same level of expenses each year. It's just a matter of how you want to bring in the revenue to pay for the plan.
Correct. Yep. On this first figure, you can see the comparison of alternative 1 versus alternative 2. So in year 1, the yellow bar alternative 2, you can see the much bigger increase followed by the step increases presented in alternative 1. And also we show the projected average annual statewide residential sewer costs in the purple line across the top, as well as the minimum requirements for USDA funding, which is this blue line. We're currently exploring USDA as an option for the community to fund wastewater projects. USDA offers a unique grant and loan combination. They have loan terms up to 40 years, and they also offer grants ranging from 20 to 75% on projects, depending on their need and the community's needs. In order to qualify for those projects, we need the sewer rates to be at least 1% of the median household income. As you can see, we're almost right there. We're at about 0.96% of the median household income in town for the sewer rates. So we also wanted to make sure in our recommendations that we were getting above that 1% so that we might be grant eligible for some of these projects. The next slide shows the rate alternatives on a monthly basis. So as you can see, currently the average sewer user, residential sewer user paying 1 AEDU is paying approximately $42 per month. With the proposed rate increase for alternative 1, that would go up to about $49 per month. Alternative 2 would go up to about $65 per month. And we have the statewide average in the purple bar. And then just as a comparison, in the green bar, we have the average 2-person cell phone bill and also the average monthly cost for residential, cable, home, and internet, just to show where the sewer usage cost compares to some typical utility bills that sewer users might be seeing. In addition to the 2 rate alternatives that we considered, we also looked at a senior discount concept. This is something that the town has considered and discussed over the years. Right now, approximately 23% of Great Barrington residents are 65 years or older. This is based on the 2010 census. Unfortunately, the 2020 data is not out yet. But this allowed us to assume that approximately 354 EDUs could be seniors. And we looked at what impact discounts ranging from 10 to 20% on senior sewer bills would have on the rest of the sewer users. Our assumption includes that if we are discounting for the seniors, we have to make up the revenue elsewhere. So we would have to raise the EDU rate slightly for the rest of the sewer users. So this table 4 below shows a 10, 15, and 20% discount for seniors. And really the columns you want to look at are the last 2. So for every 10% discount that we offer to seniors, it would require the EDU cost to go up about 1%. So if we did a 10% discount, we would have to raise the current EDU by about 1% to offset the cost. If we did a 20% discount, we would have to raise the current EDU by about 2% to offset the cost of the discount. And the last column shows what some of these rates for seniors could be if these discounts were applied.
As we get into talking about the recommendations and the town's contemplation of these alternatives or discounts, I think the thing here to understand is it isn't a huge impact on the other customers, but it could potentially be a huge impact on Mark and Sean in terms of staff. Who's going to manage the program? What is this program going to look like? And the paperwork element could be overwhelming for a small community.
The other concept we looked at, in addition to the 2 rate alternatives and the senior discount, was a sewer rate abatement concept. This would be a sewer rate abatement that all sewer users would be eligible for, and it would automatically be applied to their sewer bill if they met the requirements for the abatement. So this is a program for low water consumption sewer users. So typically people that are using less than 1 EDU of consumption or much less than that amount. Given the fact that a majority of wastewater costs are fixed, So regardless of how much water is sent through the system, the cost to operate and run the system remains pretty constant year to year. We looked at providing abatements to people that consume anywhere from 10, 20, and 30% of the average water consumption for one EDU. So the average water consumption currently in town is about 127 gallons per day. So we looked at providing abatements to anyone who uses 10, 20, or 30% of that amount and how it would impact the other sewer users. So this table is similar to the one presented for the senior discounts. So we looked at these three ranges of customers, 10, 20, and 30%. And if we were to grant an abatement to anyone using 10% of water consumption, and we assumed a 20% discount for all of these tiers, we would need to raise the rates about 0.2% to offset the cost. So it's pretty minimal. In comparison, if we were to award abatements to anyone using 30% of one EDU or less and grant them a 20% discount, we would need to raise the rates about 1% to offset the cost. Now, as Dave mentioned, anything related to abatement and discount programs is going to require town staff and town time to review and implement the discounts and the abatements. The senior discount is something we envision would be application-based. Anyone that meets the qualifications of the age bracket and is either a homeowner or co-homeowner in town would be eligible. You would apply and you'd be granted the discount. The sewer rate abatement would require coordination with the two water companies in town, Housatonic and the Great Barrington Fire District. The town does not currently own and operate a water system, so it would be even more logistics required on town staff to implement a sewer rate abatement concept as opposed to a senior discount concept. So those are some considerations to look at when we talk about these two abatement and discount programs.
I think just to build on to what James said there, two things became evident when we looked at this concept. One is that not as many customers as we thought were ultra low users, so there weren't a tremendous amount of outliers. So the impetus or momentum for considering this is relatively low in our opinion. The second thing is you have three drinking water sources. You have the two private districts and folks that are on wells that are connected to sewer. So it's a bit of a logistical nightmare, maybe even more so than the senior concept in terms of trying to figure out how to manage it and having a baseline for each three of those buckets.
And here's a summary of our recommendations. We recommend that the town consider implementing alternative 1, which is a fixed rate increase over years 1 through 6. That's the 16% increase per year, resulting in a fiscal year 2022 rate of $587. This will allow sewer users more time to plan for rate increases and budget for the next year's rate increase as it's proposed. We also recommend that the town apply for USDA funding for the pump stations and phase 3 wastewater treatment plant upgrades. There's a potential for some massive grants for these projects, which would offset the rates even more. All of our recommendations assume that the town is conventionally financing these projects with no grants. So if we were able to secure grants and more lucrative financing for these projects, we could see even lower rates. It's something we would evaluate year to year. We recommend that the town further evaluate the senior discount program and its impact on town resources, who would manage the program, how would residents apply, and how would it be implemented on an annual basis. And we also recommend that the town defer the sewer rate abatement considerations at this time. We don't think the resources are in place for the town to successfully implement this program, and not, at least not as easily as a senior discount program might be implemented.
Could you flip back to slide 6 real quick before we jump to Q&A? So when we look forward, in terms of the recommendations for the next 6 years, the 16% per year increases are substantial. Nobody denies that. As we look backwards, in the 9 years that preceded today, the average increase was only about 1% per year when you look at the numbers. And then if you go back to year 10, you did have a step from that point. If you combine the 10 previous years with the proposed 6 years, you're looking at a net average of somewhere in that state average of 4 to 5 to 6% per year. So it's just kind of a matter of Great Barrington has enjoyed keeping the rates relatively, well, very stable over a 10-year period. But now in order to meet those robust capital requirements that the regulators necessitate, the town's looking at some more elevated steps. So 16% per year, as James said, was about as soft as we could land. And with that, fire away.
So I'll start with questions. I assume what we're going to vote on tonight is year one and not the 6-year plan.
I would not encourage you to vote on any more than 1 year, but in order to make that first decision, you kind of need to understand what the path looks like over those 5 or 6 years.
Okay, we're in agreement on that.
Yep.
The other is that, and I think you've already said this, I think James said it, a 16% increase this year doesn't necessarily mean that every year, because we could get grants. So we're just doing this 1 year at a time because we're hoping that the increase isn't as large as on Plan 1 tonight, because there are grants that could be available.
That's correct. What we've tried to do, and Sean's been very proactive with this since he's been on board, is we've done more of like a robust analysis every 3 years. And then in the years in between, we've done what we would call an annual update. So sometimes projects don't move as quickly as we think that they're going to. So it changes the implementation schedule. And then, as you said, Stephen, other times you find out that you may be fortunate enough to get a grant in one area. So it should be adjusted, but it's also good to provide the public the context of this is the order of magnitude path that the town's likely on over the next 5 years.
Understood. Mark, can you take the screen share down so I can see everyone a little easier? That's perfect. Do I have questions from anyone? Seeing no questions, Ed, do you want to make a motion?
Lee has.
By the way, I have a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't see Lee up there. Sorry.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It was very, very helpful and informative. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Is there a way to differentiate between a senior and a low-income senior? One of the reasons why I'm asking that, there are seniors in our community that, have the wealth, and there's a lot of seniors that don't. And my thought process, if we target it for low-income seniors, we might be able to help them a little bit more. So there's a way to put kind of an income threshold on this?
You certainly could. It would soften the impacts that we presented on slide 11. In other words, it would make them less dramatic. If you didn't consider every senior, but you only considered certain resident seniors that might have an income threshold, it would just dampen the effects. So in some ways, it would be easier to help the other customers soften the blow.
So
The short answer is yes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my thought is, my follow-up is that, I'd like to help the low-income seniors more. So if we, narrow it down, would there be a way to help them more, because there's going to be fewer seniors being helped?
Yeah, and my question was, and we don't have the answers to this yet, my thought was that this was going to be an application process like we do now. In other words, it wouldn't be an automatic discount. Someone would have to apply for, and that would probably serve the same purposely.
Can I ask the opposite question, which is there a reason we're not offering, or we are not considering a discount to all low-income people, regardless of their age? Which is where I think we start to get into a slippery slope on this. As far as usage, I swear we've done this before, where we looked at the giving discounts to low usage and really reached the same conclusion that you stated, which is costs are not related to usage. So the fact that there's two issues. One, the fact that somebody uses less doesn't save the system money, and it makes revenue unpredictable. And the other end of that, the lower usage will be the second homeowners. If we're given discounts, that's where they're going to go.
Whatever you may contemplate, I would encourage you to make small actions one at a time. What you might do is if the town says we have an appetite to do abatement A, forget about what the category is, but just abatement A year in advance of considering that, almost implement like a ghost layer in the billing such that folks can have the opportunity to apply in advance. I will say this right now, Great Barrington, of all of our clients, 40-something clients in Mass and Connecticut, you have the most stable revenue structure of any of our clients, fixed, 100% fixed fee. So in years where it's, it rains a ton and you're worrying about losing revenue from people watering the lawns, doesn't matter from a sewer perspective in Great Barrington, you're always going to have that revenue. The more abatement layers you stack, the more variability you have in your budgeting process, and you may have to dip more into retained earnings in lean years.
Steve, can I suggest we do these one at a time?
So what I was going to suggest is that tonight we focus on the increase, the first year increase. It seems to me, and I may be in the minority, but the only abatement that I would consider is the senior low income. And I would ask that the town staff come back with an executive summary on that. We don't have to act on that tonight because as it was talked about in the presentation, are we capable? Do we have the staff to do that? What kind of work, et cetera? So I would hope that tonight our first thing we would do is to do the next year's increase, and then maybe something in the motion to direct town staff to come back to us with recommendations on the senior low income.
Let's do them one at a time. Let me just, so we have something to discuss, let me propose on the increase, we go with option 1, which was the 16% per year, I believe.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Then I have a question. Oh,
So I do too, Ed. I just want to clarify your motion. We're not implementing, I would hope we're not implementing all 6 years. In other words,
Correct.
starting. So you're just recommending year 1 of the
60%.
first option.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from the graph with the little yellow line and the little green line, it looked like if we do that in 6, and we have to stick with that for 6 years, 6 years from now, we're paying more than we would be paying with Plan B. Right, the green line was longer than the yellow line.
That's correct. With the 16% increase, in order to keep the retained earnings stable, without making that big jump in year 1, we're spending more out of retained earnings. So you do end up paying more on the increases at the end. Otherwise, we're going to be drawing the retained earnings down to a balance that we're just not quite comfortable recommending.
But we are gambling that if we do that by year 3, 4, 5, whatever, that we will get grants, and that won't be a significant problem. That's kind of a question. Is that
Right. We will continue to evaluate and look at them each year, as we have been. We'll look at your operation and maintenance budget, implementation schedule, and see where we fall in that 16% range. But as Dave mentioned, we should plan that it's going to be, approximately that magnitude. And if we get the grants, that's great. We can reduce them a little bit. Otherwise, that's what we'll be looking at.
The order of magnitude of some of the capital projects really is going to dictate the town's ability to get grants. I don't want to put like qualifiers on it, but a quote small project of $5 million in the grand scheme of other competing communities has a better chance of a higher grant percentage sometimes than does a $20 million treatment plant upgrade where, state of Massachusetts, USDA only gets $12 million a year for the whole state. So sometimes it's a balance of kind of getting the right project size and the right grant. And that's why we plan for the worst case. And each year as we move along, Steve, we'll be able to fine tune the recommendations, and Sean and Mark can bring this back to you and you can vote on them accordingly.
okay?
If we can, the difference between option A and option B, how many years will it be before we reach that grant applicable level?
We'll reach in year one. So as long as we're just below it, we're at 0.96 of the 1% threshold that's required for the grants, USDA. So either alternative is going to make the town eligible for grants.
Year one.
Any other questions?
This isn't a question, but it seems like this is something we do in our town, which is we don't plan for these things. And, you know, I've been on the board for 7 years, so I'm partly responsible. But, you know, I know as a town, we have started to put money away for future capital expenses we know we're going to have. Shouldn't we have been doing that here? We've been getting away with rates that are lower. So anyone who is lucky enough, and I use that tongue in cheek, to move, got the benefit of lower rates than they should have. And those of us who still live here are picking up the bills for those of us who moved away and haven't been paying.
Well, that was a conscious decision by a board. I think
Yes. Again, I'm blaming us,
Yeah.
me. I wonder if going forward, and for the next 6 years, we don't really have to think about that. But after that, if we just think about all of our infrastructure and, you know, should we be starting to consider replacement value so that future taxpayers don't bear the entire burden, given that we might be those future taxpayers?
Ed and Steve, the group, you ought to give yourself a pat on the back. I mean, you have $5 million in reserve in your sewer account. James, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like gold star in the communities that we work with.
The best
So
we can do.
it's not all bad. I mean, if anything went wrong, the capital plan went slower than we thought it would. So you appropriately so, the rate stayed flat for a few years. And now that accordion is kind of piled up in years 2 through 6. So you're going to get to the same point, but you've been really proactive. You've developed an asset management plan for your collection system, for your treatment plant. I mean, Great Barrington's really one of our most proactive clients when it comes to wastewater infrastructure. So
Well,
perception is 9/10 of the law. So, but you
Thank
really
you.
have done a good job.
Thank you for taking me off the hook of my own wrath.
All good.
And can I just butt in for 1 second?
Go ahead, Sean.
So we decided partly, just to Ed's point, not to raise rates, anticipating a permit from EPA that hadn't come yet. So we didn't feel like we should be making people bear cost of a project that we didn't know when or where it was going to happen, not where, but when. But now that permit's here, and it's a sizable $30 million project. So these rate increases are actually pretty moderate considering where our rates are and what we're funding. It's a sizable project, and we're in a much better situation than most other municipalities.
Let me ask another question and I know you don't know the answer to this because who would? If we go with Plan B and our rates are even that much higher than the threshold for grants, when we apply for grants, are they going to say, here's a town that needs it because the rates are so high?
That is a factor that's considered. So the higher that percent of median household income, so you take your sewer rate, your average sewer rate divided by the median household income. The higher that is, the more eligible you are in the eyes of the underwriters. However, it's just a balance of how you want to present that to the sewer users. It's a big undertaking in year one, but it could potentially, there's no guarantees, but it could potentially position you for a better grant.
Yeah, I agree with James. Either A and B, 1 and 2, the first step that you take positions you. You're already less than 10,000 people. You're less than the state non-metro median household income. Your median household income sewer will be over 1% per year. You know, then it comes down to, as we get closer to these projects, having regulatory orders and having letters from DEP and EPA. That's when it actually starts to help the town. You're not quite there yet, but sometimes those can trigger going from a 20% grant to a 45% grant. And we'll explore those each step of the way as we go. But I agree. I don't think it matters which step you take tonight. Sean, I don't know if you have a different opinion, but
I just wanted to add something, which is that the creation of the impact fees, which this board did vote on 3 or 4 years ago, was a major step to help fund some of these projects. And given the amount of new growth we're seeing, that in combination, the new growth, the impact fees with possible grants, hopefully level these rate increases. So just throwing that out there.
Sean, thank you for giving us the credit for that. It was your idea, I believe.
So we have a motion and a second. motion is to go with option one and for the first year to implement that rate increase. Roll call vote, Lee. Kate. Bill.
Yes,
Ed.
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Ed, do you want to second?
Yeah, I guess the motion is to ask town staff, I suppose with help from the consultants, to come back with a summary and a recommendation about senior discount limited to by income.
Do I have a second?
yeah, I second.
Discussion.
I-
Roll call vote.
I think it was a good thought to maybe consider a certain income level across the board for all homeowners.
Can they take a look at that? Is that, I mean, if that's not something, is that allowable?
I don't know. I don't know where you get the data.
It's gonna have to be somewhat, willing on the part of the sewer customers, but let's maybe after this evening, James, figure out with Sean what we have for data, start there. My experience in the past has been that even when you try to add creative layers to an abatement, the majority of people still don't even apply. You tend to get a small percentage that even apply for the abatement. So we think we're being really proactive and smart, and only a small fraction even goes through the process. But I could be wrong in this case.
So should I add, let me amend?
No, just withdraw your motion, withdraw the second.
Motion. Bill, withdraw the second.
I'll throw a second.
Okay.
So the motion is the same thing, but also, so it's to have town staff come to us with a recommendation and a summary about a senior discount limited by income, and also the feasibility of just a general income threshold discount.
Do I have a second?
Yeah.
So motion by Ed, a second by Bill. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Lee? Yes? Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. I think that's it. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Mark, are you doing the Division Street Bridge update or Sean?
Actually, if you could
I would be glad to.
promote Andrea and Brian Brenner, I'll go ahead and get the presentation up on the screen.
Okay, I'm Andrea Lacasse from Ty and Bond. Brian Brenner is also on the call with me. So we're talking about Division Street again. So we've been pursuing a replacement of the existing truss with a temporary structure. And this is basically to reopen the bridge and establish a safe crossing while waiting for Mass DOT to replace the structure. You can go ahead and advance the slide. So basically what we've done to date, we've looked at comparing the loads of the existing structure to a proposed structure under the pretenses that we're going to reuse the existing abutments. So this here is the dead load comparison. Dead load is basically the load of the structure itself. It's the loads that's not going to change. So the existing truss was very heavy, and we looked at a couple of different configurations for proposed structures. We looked at 2-lane configuration. We also looked at a single lane configuration with a sidewalk. And as you can see, the proposed structures are significantly lighter than the existing structure. And this opens up opportunity to increase the size of your truck to a more modern standard versus the current standard that's on the truss, which is a lighter truck configuration. So the number highlighted at the bottom is a single lane bridge with a sidewalk, and the load of the structure is about 40% that of the existing bridge. We also did a live load comparison. The live loads are the loads that move, the vehicular loads, the pedestrian loads. So as we expected, we're trying to modernize the crossing and get a higher live load. So as you would expect, the proposed live load exceeds the existing live load, and it's about 140%. When you combine those two, the dead load and the live load, we're still not quite at 100% of the load. We're around 73%. And this configuration that we're sharing here, again, is the single lane with a sidewalk. We did look at the other configurations. They're not summarized in this presentation, but those are closer to 100% of the original load. We've started laying out how the proposed configurations would look crossing over the existing abutment. So here you can see, I'm not sure that you can see, I've got a lot of line work on here, but there are some dashed lines that represent where the existing bearings are. And then we have some proposed bearings. The gray blocks over the top of the back wall, that indicates where the travel lane will cross over the top of the back wall, and also where the sidewalk will cross over the top of the back wall. So we're looking to see how this lays out within the existing back wall. This will give an indication as to how the back walls will need to be modified in order to advance this project. It also is an indication as far as what would look like if there were any property takes, and how this centers about the bridge, and also where these bearings are going to fall on the existing bridge seat. Is the existing bridge seat adequate to support the proposed structure? So again, this is the single lane bridge with a sidewalk. We also looked at, in the next slide, we have the 2-lane configuration. So you can see the proposed bearings are now pushed wider onto the existing bridge seat, and this becomes concerning in that once you start adding your anchor bolts, those stresses are closer to the edge of the concrete and could pose challenges and could be problematic. So this is the more narrow of the 2-lane configuration, and it's concerning. It's also concerning that the dead load plus live load is closer to the existing, considering that we're using a structure that's nearing the end of its useful service life. We might not want to overstress the existing foundation pile system. So these are a couple of the considerations that we've made in our evaluation while we've laid this out. Go ahead, Mark. In order to adapt the abutment from the existing condition to the proposed condition, we would have to demolish the existing back wall. So that is the wall that supports traffic. As it leaves the deck, it transitions to the top of the back wall, and then the fill behind the back wall onto the road. So this would have to come down, and we would have to build up the height of the bridge seat elevation, because the proposed structure is actually shorter than the existing structure that's out there. So we figure minor abutment modifications in order to accommodate this proposed condition. This is just a framing plan to give you a sense. The sidewalk we figure would be to the north. The travel lane is between these proposed trusses that are shown on here. This is a section through the bridge showing the travel lane and then the cantilevered sidewalk to the north. So the advantage of this is you have protected pedestrian and bicycle access across the structure. It's separated from the travel lane, vehicular travel lane. So that summarizes what we've done to date. We're currently coordinating with MassDOT a meeting to go over the work that we've performed to date and to get their buy-in so that we can advance our drawings and then submit for Chapter 85 approval. So Does anyone have any questions about the work that we've done so far?
I assume the board wants to hear schedule wise when they think we can go out to bid and possibly build the bridge.
Yeah, so a lot of this is contingent upon Mass DOT schedule and how responsive they are. We figure we have about 2 more months to complete the drawing so that they're ready for Chapter 85 approval. So, you know, we're probably looking at June for that submittal. Chapter 85 review can take between 2 to 3 months to turn around. So we're probably looking at a bid advertisement around September at this point.
In that case, does it make sense for us to be putting something like this on our town meeting? Because this would be a purchase for the town. Can we purchase something without town meeting?
We have existing funding to replace the bridge from 2 years ago.
Okay.
Lee?
Yeah, just following up on the timeline. So providing that happens in June, then approximately how long will it take? Big question.
I assume that if we're starting construction in the fall, it'd be fall, winter, and then it'd be 6 to 8 months, maybe longer for construction. I don't know if you guys have a better idea. Maybe a year?
Actually, because of a modular truss, we think that the construction schedule will probably be about 5 to 6 months because these trusses go in fairly quickly. I think it's going to be the longest period is going to be the submittal period, and it's very construction engineering oriented. So they're going to have to engineer how to remove this truss, disassemble the existing truss. I think that's going to take the most time. And then that new proposed truss, they go in pretty quickly. So that shouldn't be too long. And then it's just rebuilding the back walls and establishing the approaches.
This is all assuming that Mass DOT approves the initial drawings. There's no more complications. So we don't want to get too hopeful that it's going to be happening faster than it is.
And the assumption is there would be a light and it would, like there was on the bridge in Housatonic, and it would be one way and then go through the light.
Yeah, so this as a single lane, it would be single lane alternating traffic. So you would have traffic lights at either end. We believe that it's too long for just a stop sign, so it would have to be light controlled.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Is the bridge reusable if it's a temporary bridge?
Absolutely. This is an asset that's purchased by the town. So you'll have approximately 140 feet and it's modular in 10-foot increments. So it could be reused again at Brookside. It's a 140-foot bridge, or you could use it 10, 20, 40-foot lengths throughout town. It could also be sold to another municipality and you could gain some of that money back. It
Great.
will be an asset that you own.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle has her hand up. Go ahead, Michelle.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Michelle Gobert, 70 Division Street. First off, I'm really happy with the fact that there's going to be a sidewalk on the bridge. It was pretty risky running over the bridge or walking over the bridge in the old days when the bridge was open. There's been a considerable uptick in pedestrian use of Division Street between runners, walkers, cyclists. So I think the sidewalk is going to be extremely beneficial. I have a question. There was a mention of property takes. I have a couple questions, but what do you mean by property takes?
It was just something that we considered when looking at a single lane versus a double lane and with adding a sidewalk. And the current configuration, and according to our layout, does not require any property takes. So it was just something that we would consider in our evaluation.
All right, so when you say property takes, you mean taking part of someone's property to do. That's what I want to know what that means.
Yes, I'm sorry. So that just means that it goes outside of the town's right of way.
Right, exactly. And if it was 2-lane, which it doesn't sound like that's the best way to go, would a sidewalk still be involved with a 2-lane?
Well, the town could do that, but it would require much more modification of the existing abutments. It would require property taking. So
Right.
it's not favorable, but if the town had a strong preference for that, that is something that we could consider, but that's not what we're currently evaluating right now.
Because I think the sidewalk is wonderful. Okay, and I have questions with regard to the weight load. I'm a little confused by that. Is the temporary bridge going to have a higher weight load or lower than the existing bridge? I think you said lower than the existing bridge. My concern being that weight load was not respected before on the bridge, which I personally feel contributed to its condition. Also because of the residential nature of Division Street and the high activity of people using the street now for hiking, for walking and that sort of thing. I do have a concern regarding large trucks going over the bridge. So if you could just explain that weight load in layman's terms, please, I would appreciate it.
Sure. So the proposed structure itself is lighter than the existing structure that's out there, but it is designed for a heavier truck. So that is something that the town will need to decide what they want this bridge to, what they want to allow to cross this bridge.
Yes, as a resident of Division Street, I have very strong concerns because there's been consistent complaints with regard to truck traffic on North Plain Road. And these are massive trucks. So I still am skeptical regarding the temporary bridge and its capability of handling the weight load, also the disruption in the neighborhood of such heavy weighted trucks. So I just want to go on the record that I would really have to voice opposition to that. But as I said in the past, the town of Great Barrington did not respect the weight load before. And also, I would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation if I could get one via the town manager.
Sure.
Forward that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michelle. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, Andrea, Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next would be Chief Story. Vision for the future of Great Barrington Police Department.
Well, hi, everybody. It's, I don't know if my presentation is going to be quite as exciting, but I'll try. So I just kind of wanted to touch base with everybody and kind of give an idea of what we've done over the last 3 months since I've taken over for Chief Walsh. I've continued some of the programs that he had started and kind of advanced a few of them in the same direction. So we took the co-responder program and we added a couple different layers, different partnerships within the community. We've started a community outreach program, which has been really, really receptive. People are feeling really good about it, and we're making good connections with that. In addition to that, I've set up and had several meetings with different groups in the community to kind of start the conversation and find out areas that the police department can, serve different aspects of the community better. We've also started, the community K-9 program is doing really well. We've made several visits around the community, different events, even though BICO's still in training. It seems to be a really good program that people enjoy. I'm just touching base really quickly because I'm sure everybody knows a lot of this stuff that we've been doing. I have some programs for the future that I can let you know about. Starting at the end of this month, I'm starting a series to introduce the police officers on a one-on-one basis. so they can kind of get a little bio and understanding, put a face to the name. I'm also doing a couple open houses, one in end of April. I'm planning if I can get everything set up properly, and another one in mid-May. I've spoken to Eric Gruen from SoCo, and he's been generous enough to, he's going to provide some tasty treats for the people for the open house if they stop by to visit. So that's kind of exciting. We are continuing to participate in a couple different events around the community when we can. We've been doing some reading at the library, meeting with some of the kids at the schools, the younger kids. Let's see. Some of the other stuff that I have planned are later on this month. We're doing, we already do the pill drop off. So we're going to join with the National Pill Disposal Day on April 24th to encourage people to properly dispose of their prescription medication. Let's see, we have another event planned with Polly from the senior center, where I purchased some those files for life that the people can put on the refrigerator. They're like a magnet, and they have their personal information, their medication, in case there's an emergency there to help identify for first responders. Let's see, what else have we been doing here? I'm really excited about this. So one of the things that Chief Walsh had started was the crisis intervention teams, our training. And at one point we had the goal, the pledge that we signed up for was 20% of our department. We're currently over 50%. And I have 3 officers in it right now. I'm hoping by the end of this fiscal year to have over 90% of our officers trained in crisis intervention. So that's really exciting, because that's a big goal to reach for an agency like ours. I'm continuing on with the accreditation process. We're hopefully on track to be reaccredited once that expires in, I think, about 1.5 years from now. We're keeping up to date on all our policies. We've adjusted to some of the changes that are required with the new police reform through the accreditation. I'm also constantly kind of keeping in the loop of police reform and how it's going to affect our police department and our community. There are going to be some changes that will affect us starting July 1. But I think we're going to be in good shape, and I think we're well prepared for that transition. Some upcoming events I have planned this fall. We're going to do a suicide prevention, some training with the officers. In addition to that, we're going to participate in suicide awareness. That's just a couple of the programs that I have planned. I think at this point, if anybody has any questions, I might be able to answer more pointed questions and explain a little bit more. I did have a series of Zoom series where I did explain a couple of the things that we do with the accreditation. We talked about the co-responder program and the community outreach program, and that was well received also.
Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief Storti. You mentioned some changes coming up July 1st related to the police reform on a larger level. Could you give us a sense of what will be coming with that?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for people to be aware of is the establishment of the Post Commission, which is going to be the Police Oversight Commission for all police officers and police agencies in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have a local representative who was selected, one of 9 people across the state, Chief Wynn. You may have read about it recently, but that's a pretty big honor to be selected to that process. Chief Wynn is a great police officer and a great chief, and I think he's going to serve our community, our county, very well. So the police oversight, they're going to be able to certify and decertify police officers based on complaints that are brought against an officer and or an agency. So it's one panel committee for all of the state. Additionally, where we may see some impact from the police reform is the certification of part-time police officers. With the police reform, what they're requiring is all police officers have the same training. So currently, if you're a part-time police officer, your training level is slightly lower, what they call training hours, and they don't cover all the same topics. So they want to bring all police officers up to that higher level of training. So everybody's trained the same way, the same amount of time, the same topics, and the same requirements. So what that is, one of the issues it's creating is that it's going to be a burden for the smaller communities to, one, they haven't funded for that additional training. And when I say it's probably an additional 300 to 500 hours of training. I don't think the state has figured out exactly the number of hours they're going to require. So part-time officers are going to be, they're going to have a challenge to meet that criteria. And that creates another question. If you're a part-time police officer and you're full-time trained, why would you want to work part-time when you can find a job as a full-time officer? Or if you're a part-time officer, do you want to go to that, take that time and energy to get certified if not, you're not interested in becoming a full-time officer? So there's a couple, different things, and that could affect us. We do currently use a part-time officer system to help supplement our full-time officers. But we do not have a lot where it's, I think we have currently 4 or 5. We have one that's kind of on leave right now. He's helping out with his current job. He's got an important role in the community, so he hasn't been working a lot lately. Another area where it could affect us is with the requirement of body-worn cameras in that data management. And I think I've brought that to the attention of one of our meetings before. And that's something that we're going to have to learn, and we're going to have to adjust for and budget for that extra responsibility and train somebody to be able to redact that information appropriately. So we're putting the proper information out. And I don't know the time frame for that. From my understanding through some of the meetings I've been, is that the state will provide the equipment. It's just up to the municipalities to manage the equipment. So those are the 3 biggest things I think that are going to affect us. And the last thing I'll say is that doesn't affect us, but it's going to affect other communities. And this is why we're kind of ahead of the game, is all police departments are going to be required to be certified through the Accreditation Commission. And certification is a lower level than the full accreditation. It's like the first level you have to achieve. So we're fortunate that we have already achieved the higher level of full accreditation. So for us, it's going to be really nice not to scramble to try to get accredited. Just knowing what we went through to get the accreditation and the full certification, that is going to be a big challenge for other communities. So we're very, very fortunate that we have that under our belt, and that we've not only been certified, we've been accredited and re-accredited under Chief Walsh. So,
any other questions?
Thank you, Chief Story.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Snorty. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Mark, Trust Policy and Police Oversight Committee Charter.
Sure, and Chief, you can hang in there for this conversation as well. So in your packet for tonight, I included an executive summary, a copy of the executive summary dated February 4th, when we discussed this at our February 8th meeting. And the only reason this is back on the agenda tonight is because the motion that was made that evening, which I typed up verbatim here on the backside, reads as though you voted to establish a police oversight committee. And if that's the case, I just wanted to circle back and request that we reconsider the charter or revise the charter at a future meeting. So I just wanted to get some guidance, some clarification from this board on how you'd like us as staff to move this forward.
Board, what's your pleasure?
I'm not sure the question
I
you're
guess I mean, yeah.
Yeah, like,
I mean, I guess, yeah, there definitely was interest from some community members that wanted to see an oversight board. my question is with the statewide, the police reform, how that could impact what we do at local level. That was my understanding, but I'd like to kind of know the ramifications and implications of doing that. I believe there was hesitancy for having a police oversight committee. So I'd like to kind of hear both sides of the coin, so to speak.
Chief Snorri?
Sure. Well, I learned a little bit in one of my my chatting with the chief things was, and I spoke to a gentleman that is actually part of the Pittsfield Oversight Committee that they have established up in Pittsfield, and who's a great resource. He just brought a lot of information and knowledge, stuff that I didn't even know. Actually, I think Mark, you may have sat in on that, the one I'm referring to. And what he explained to us is that even though there's a police oversight committee, they really have no authority to do anything as far as oversight or discipline, just based on the way the rules and the law is. And now with this police oversight post commission that's being established, they are taking over all disciplinary and certification aspects for all police and police departments. So I think you need to identify what your goals and objectives are for that, and keeping that in mind that it's not going to have a lot of weight because the post commission is going to carry all the weight for discipline and consequences for law enforcement.
Go ahead,
Just following up on that, what I heard was there was some concern about transparency. So we understand that there's a certain level of what that committee could actually do. But transparency always seemed to come up. So, whether there was an extra layer that townspeople could be aware if there were certain actions being taken, police officers' action, or, for us to be aware of things that are happening in community.
I don't have an answer to that question. I don't know what their policies and what their procedure is as far as sharing information. I can only make the assumption that it would probably be similar to the way it is now. If there's any type of personnel issue or disciplinary hearing, that would be distributed as they could. And I don't know what those rules are.
Ed?
Well, the motion says, if necessary, to make recommendations with respect to police department transparency, accountability, handling of allegations of misconduct, directing resources to community. Should we be directing staff to take a look, given the state regulations and what we might expect to get back from the state if there are allegations, and decide if it's necessary, or let us, ask us to decide? Does that make sense?
Well, the way I understand it's supposed to work, so that the chief of police is tasked with the requirement that any complaint gets forwarded to the post commission within 48 hours. So it's up to the police chief of the municipality where the complaint comes in to forward that complaint automatically up to the post commission. I am also going to be required to submit all personnel records to the post commission. So they'll have a file, and including their training. So all the training, all the personnel records, and if a complaint comes in, I am obligated to forward that to the post commission. And if I don't, then obviously I'm violating the rules and
Right, so
held accountable.
the town manager's question is it necessary for us to do local oversight, which I think is the question. And is there, because the current motion or the thing we passed says if necessary. So really the question is making that decision. So I guess if I have both of those assumptions correct, I think we might suggest staff comes back to us with a recommendation and then we make that decision.
Kate?
I'm wondering if can somebody file a complaint with Post confidentially or with the town manager? Are you the only mandated reporter of police complaints that would warrant an investigation by Post?
That's a great question, and I believe other people can. It's not just me, but I'm obligated, if I receive a complaint, to forward it. And I just think logistically too, just think about this. If there's another layer to this, I have to have that information very quickly to be able to forward it to them in the appropriate timeline. And so, I don't know if there's another layer to that. Are they just going to take the complaint and forward it? Or are they going to do their own investigation and then forward it to me? And then I have to forward it. So there's logistically, I think it needs to be figured out how it's going to be handled.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in some ways I do have concerns about a victim being required to complain to the assailant, not you necessarily, but your department. If there were something to happen, I think that really isn't taking into consideration the emotional harm that can have on somebody. And so I don't know. I'm not saying I have an answer, but I'm just saying that I think that there is fault in that people may not step forward. And so I would like to be able to provide people a place or an avenue to be able to step forward. And maybe we need to just say that this is just a trust policy committee for now and see how this post thing kind of shakes out as it starts. But I think for us to really, or at least for me, and hopefully for others as well, to really feel comfortable in how we're setting up the ability to share any concerns, that we're creating as many ways to do that as possible. And whether that is, it goes to this local committee and then it comes to you, like maybe we just have to see how it's set up and then figure out how we fit in to that by establishing our own.
I think what Ed said and what Kate's saying makes sense to me. That is, we establish a trust policy committee and we ask the town staff to come back to us with more details on the post committee and how that's going to work, because that's still in its infancy. So if in fact they already have, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If in fact they have confidential reporting methods that exclude the police department if necessary, I hope it's never necessary, but it could be, then we don't have to form our own committee. If they don't, then we have to figure out, how we want to do it. But to move this along, it makes sense to form the trust policy committee and then to have the town manager and town staff, police chief come back to us with more details on how this is set up by the state. Does that make sense?
Seems reasonable to me.
Yeah. Okay. I have one hand up and Lily Schwartz, go ahead.
Hey, hi y'all. I just wanted to share that I believe, based on a conversation that I had with Gwendolyn Mansant, that the Trust Policy Committee can't be an advisory committee. But I there may be other folks on the call of the police. There may be other folks on the call who have a little bit more context to that. I'm not sure who's on. But I just wanted to put that out there for some background, or maybe something that folks can look into as this moves forward. But I agree. I don't want that to be a roadblock to this. And I appreciate the select board's, commitment to finding a way to move this forward. But I would love to just kind of, as this moves forward, like some clarity around how the Trust Policy Committee would then be interacting with the police department, and like what that role would be or what that collaboration would look like. So just wanted to kind of provide that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed, do you want to try to make a motion for us to discuss?
I think Lee has something to say.
Lee, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Just one thing, just with this July 1st date coming up, it would be very helpful, and Chief Storty, you probably have this on your to-do list, but to have something on the website that is accessible, obviously, to townspeople, that explains some of the changes coming on, and if they have specific complaints, what happens, what's the route that the complaint to go to, where does it end up, and just to explain the post. Because I think, sometimes if people do have concerns that they, at least in what I've heard from other fraternity members, that they don't know where it ends. You know, where does it go and where does it end? So if there is a change with the post July 1st timeline, you know, how is that going to affect the community members? So because it is pretty substantial what's happening.
Makes sense.
So I can make a motion if you want. I don't know that we need one, given the current thing we passed says if necessary, we could just ask the town manager to come back to us with whether he thinks it's necessary, given what post can do.
I think what we would want to do, I think town manager's asking for clarification, and what we want to do is form the trust committee and come back to us with more details on the post committee and reporting methods.
Can I just ask for clarification, because I was I was on the meetings when the trust policy was established, and I'm just confused because everybody keeps saying the trust committee is based on the police department, but it was my understanding that the trust committee was actually for the town.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, but people keep saying the police department, so it's throwing me off, like it's confusing me.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to say your motion again, Steve?
So I would say, Mark, if that doesn't help clarify, let me know, that we go ahead and form the trust committee and ask the town staff to come back to us with more details about the reporting and other details on the post committee.
Correct. That's very helpful.
Okay.
Back in February, you approved the charter for the trust committee. So we can proceed now with bringing you applicants for that trust committee. And I just wanted to get some clarification because, again, after reading the motion after the meeting, it just looked a little more like police oversight, and it wasn't clear. And I was going to suggest that we modify our charter to include some form of police oversight at that time.
Ed, you want to make that? So moved, and do I have a second by Bill? Or anyone?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to take very quickly Erica Milky. Very quickly.
Okay, I'm going to try to be really quick then. I was just, I was hoping that there could be more explicit call for diverse selection of committee members for this committee, as opposed to just people who sign up by the deadline. I think it's really important that it represent different underrepresented groups. And I wondered if you're already going to make a change to the charter, that charter could somehow, is it possible for the charter to address the constituents of the group?
It does.
I think it does.
The first line, it says to create a working group that reflects the needs and diversity of our community, and then goes on. Is that what you're looking for?
I mean, that's a piece of what I'm looking for, but I'm concerned that because of the limited ways that calls for this are put out, like I was looking for this and I didn't know there was a town email that went out. It was posted on the town website, but I didn't have access because I didn't have a login. I mean, I'm just wondering who has access to the call for it, and how do we make sure that there's actual diversity?
We will make sure that there's diversity on it, and I don't think we need to take any action. It would be very short-sighted of us to form this group, and if it wasn't a diverse group, that would be would not be in the best interest of the town.
We will also be re-advertising the trust committee very soon, because our first round really only attracted, I believe, 2 interested residents. So we have some work to do.
Okay, so there's no way to explicitly say that members of underrepresented communities will be in there? I mean, just putting the word diversity in there is sufficient?
Yeah, I think it's going to be sufficient, and we will recruit like we've always done if need be.
Okay, well then I guess just as a GB resident, I would like to express my interest in it being as diverse as possible.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Very quickly, Lily.
Hi, thanks, Al. I guess as someone who's like less familiar with how that recruitment process usually works, I'm wondering if you can just share a little bit about the select board, the town usually does in terms of filling positions. And then if there's, an opportunity to maybe do specific outreach in this case that wouldn't otherwise happen, so that goal of representing the diversity of the town in these issues, just having like a broad range of perspectives and knowledge and experiences can really be reflected here. So I'm sorry, I'm just not super familiar. Well, I'm sorry, there's a baby in the background, and then also I'm just not super familiar of what the town usually does. So thank you.
Okay, no problem. Mark, do you want to just briefly explain?
Sure. Normally, whenever we establish a new committee, commission, board, we advertise through a press release that goes out to all of our traditional media outlets. We also post it on our website and our Facebook and Instagram page. So please feel free to share it widely on both of those platforms.
Any other questions? So we have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, Lee.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Bill. Aye. Ed.
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Mark, I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Cultural council appointment?
You can pass over this item. We'll revisit this on the 26th.
Perfect. Southern Berkshire Ambulance appointment of town representative.
So in your packet for tonight, you should also have an executive summary. My recommendation for those who haven't had an opportunity to read it would be to appoint Chief Berger for a period of 6 months and ask that he report back to the board every 60 days or so.
So moved.
And second.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Lee. Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. That's fairly simple. So this is for the board. This is the time of year we do the town manager performance evaluation. Amy will be sending out a updated copy tomorrow morning to all the board members. It is due back on April 26th, which is by our next meeting. I will tabulate them. It will be a public document and will be reported on the meeting after that. So just, if you can get it to me by the 26th and then the meeting after that, we'll put it on the agenda. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
I don't see Kate and Lee, you're all set with that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Could I just do you need me to stay on, Mark, or?
No, we're all set, Chief. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Good night, everyone.
Night. Citizen speak time. Select board time. Lee just went black, so Kate.
I just have two really quick things about the trust policy that we were talking about. Do you think that, Mark, when you guys post the advertisement again, that there could be an Instagram or Facebook post about it, so that way that group and myself, we could all share it, and hopefully that'll attract more people. And then I just wanted to know, or to say out loud, I don't know if Erica or Lily or any of the other people that were listening in are still here, but they absolutely can be a part of the meeting when we are choosing people to be on that committee, I believe, right? It's a select board appointed, yeah, and weigh in and continue to call us out if they feel as though we're not saying what we wanted to do, because that's what we need. So just wanted to share that.
That's correct.
That's standard operating procedure for us, is to post it on Facebook and Instagram.
Great.
Bill?
No, nothing here.
Ed?
No.
I'll give Lee a second to come back on. There she is. You have anything? No. Okay, thank you. Media time. Seeing no one, we're gonna make a motion and vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to review and approve executive session minutes in compliance with General Law, Chapter 38, Section 22, not to reconvene in open session. And I declare under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to review and approve executive session minutes are in compliance with General Law, Chapter 30A, and we will not come back into open session. Do I have a motion?
Move that the select board go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, review and approve executive session minutes in compliance with General Law C 30A, and not to return to the regular open session.
I second.
Roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Kate? We've lost Kate for a minute. Ed?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye, sorry.
And so we are now going into executive session by unanimous vote. So let's give it a couple minutes while everyone clears out.